Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about homeostatic mechanisms of the body. And remember that the goal of the body is to maintain homeostasis. So, anytime there is a change in homeostasis, and especially in the core, the body is going to make changes to allow you to get back to homeostasis. And anytime the body implements a change trying to get you back to homeostasis, that's a negative feedback mechanism. And because the goal of the body is to maintain homeostasis, the vast majority of homeostatic mechanisms used in the body are negative feedback mechanisms. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to give you 3 examples of homeostasis. And when I explain the 3 examples, I want them explained in detail. And as I go through it, I will give you examples. So, first of all, the central nervous system is intimately involved in maintaining homeostasis. So, the central nervous system is made up of nerves, and these nerves are sensors, right? So they can detect changes in homeostasis. Also, organs of the body themselves have sensors. And when there's a change in homeostasis that organ is responsible for maintaining, then it will stimulate that receptor in that particular organ. And then that organ kicks into action to get you back to homeostasis. So if you read in your book, you see this little circle about effector, sensor, right? I don't care about that, right? I want you to understand the idea, and then I want you to give me examples, because clinically, this stuff is really important. And that's really what disease is. Disease is when your body is no longer able to maintain homeostasis. So many of you will be nurses, so no one's gonna come to the hospital feeling good. Yeah, I'm gonna take a vacation on the 5th floor at Aurora. Yeah, because I ain't got nothing else to do. They go to the hospital when they're sick. So first of all, let me take you through some general steps. Number 1, there are sensors in the cells of the body that detect changes in homeostasis. And these are just 3 examples. One would be pH, right? 7.35 to 7.45. The other is temperature, right? Body temperature, a vital sign, right? Got to keep it at 98.6 or thereabouts. And then water levels in the body. So they will detect changes in homeostasis. And when they do, you have these sensors, and these sensors then send signals to the part of the body that's responsible for maintaining homeostasis. It is then that part of the body's got to kick in and then make the required changes to get you back to homeostasis. So the 3 examples that I'm going to give you are, excuse me, how you maintain your blood sugar, and then how you maintain your body temperature, both when you get warm and when you get cold. So the first example I'm going to give you is blood sugar. And remember that the goal of the body is to maintain homeostasis. So if you look here, look at our little video. So real quick, homeostasis for your blood sugar should be between about 80 and 100 milligrams per deciliter. That means there's about 80 to 100 milligrams of sugar, glucose, in your blood for 100 cc's of blood. And the reason that you want to maintain homeostasis with respect to your blood sugar is because the only fuel that the brain can use is sugar. So your brain doesn't care what your triglyceride or your cholesterol or your amino acid levels are. What they care about is blood sugar. So here we go. let's say, for example, that your blood sugar is 92, and then you eat sugar. In about 15 minutes, your blood sugar is going to go up. So here we go. We're going. Yep. So this person's eating something, I don't know what it is, chocolate turtle or something, and it has sugar in it. So when your digestive system gets at it, it's going to break it down and it's going to cause your blood sugar to go up. The organ that's responsible for maintaining your blood sugar is your pancreas. And what really helps control your blood sugar is a functional protein called insulin. So there are little glucose receptors on the pancreatic cell membrane. And when they detect an elevated blood sugar, it's going to cause the release of insulin into the blood. So we'll get away from this video here a little bit, and then I'll just show you a real simple drawing. So when your blood sugar goes up, remember that every cell has a cell membrane, and that cell membrane is one cell membrane thick. And every living cell has a capillary that supplies it with what it needs. So now your blood sugar is high. Let's say it's 150. That elevated sugar is going to be detected by little receptors in the pancreatic cells, and it's going to cause the release of insulin into the blood. So glucose, what up G, is impermeable to the cell membrane. It cannot go from the blood into the cell. The only way it can go from the blood into the cell is if you have insulin and functioning insulin receptors, which are proteins embedded in all your cell membranes. So when insulin's around, and why was insulin around? Because your blood sugar was high. Insulin then is going to bind to a functioning insulin receptor on the cell membrane. And then you have these little glucose gates. Normally they're closed, but what does insulin do? Insulin opens them. And when insulin opens up that gate, it will allow glucose to go from high concentration in the blood to low concentration in the cell. And you will continue that. You will continue the release of insulin until your blood sugar is back to 80 to 100. So that is an example of a negative feedback mechanism and one of the most important homeostatic mechanisms in terms of controlling blood sugar. And for your quiz, that has to be an example. So this example that I just explained to you has to be one of the three examples, because when we start talking about metabolism, we're going to have to talk about the functions of insulin. Another example would be controlling body temperature. So the part of your brain that's involved in controlling homeostasis with respect to a lot of things is the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus is located in a deep part of your brain. So it's a vital part. And, many animals have a hypothalamus. They have to maintain homeostasis too. So the things that the hypothalamus controls are hunger, right? And that makes sense because the only fuel that the brain can use is glucose. So if your blood sugar drops, you're going to get hungry. How do you know? The hypothalamus will tell you. The other thing it controls is body temperature. And then the other last thing it controls is thirst. And that thirst helps you maintain your fluid balance. So let's talk about temperature first. So let's say, for example, that you go outside and it's cold. When you go outside and it's cold, there are little receptors inside your skin that will detect a drop in temperature. So when there is a drop in the temperature of the skin, and there begins to be a drop in core body temperature, that drop in core body temperature is detected by the hypothalamus. Now, what part of your body helps you regulate heat? The answer to that is your cardiovascular system. So your cardiovascular system can increase blood flow to parts of the body or decrease it. And again, if there's a drop in core body temperature, right, there's a drop here, and the hypothalamus detects that. So if there's that drop in body temperature, hang on, I'll get this. There's that drop in core body temperature. The hypothalamus is going to detect that. And it's the job of the hypothalamus to maintain your core body temperature. So what the hypothalamus will begin to do is it will begin to cut off that warm blood to the non-essential parts of your body, right? So your arms, your legs, and your skin. How does it do that? Well, the hypothalamus will send signals to blood vessels in your skin here, and the hypothalamus will say, cut off those blood vessels, constrict those blood vessels, make those blood vessels smaller so that blood is not going to the skin, that warm blood's not going to the skin. So when that happens, what happens to your skin? Your skin becomes cold, it becomes pale. And if that cold temperature continues, these blood vessels will really cut off, and you will begin to cause those cells to die. So that's why people get frostbite. And again, you're cutting off blood flow to the non-essential parts of your body. Now, before you lose body parts, other things will take effect. You have little muscles here that are connected to your hair follicles, and you got hair all over your body, some more than others. So when you get cold, those muscles will contract. And when they contract, they make your hair stand up. And when your hair stands up, we used to be a lot hairier than we were before. What that does is that traps a layer of warm air in your skin. So if you look at animals, they still have that. So when a dog goes out in the cold, these little muscles that are attached to all this hair, they will contract and the fur gets fluffier. So what it does is it insulates the skin from the cold, cruel world. That's what's referred to as a vestigial response. It still works, but it really doesn't help us that much. The next thing that's going to happen is the hypothalamus, as that temperature begins to drop, the hypothalamus is going to signal skeletal muscle. And it will make those skeletal muscles violently contract. And that's shivering. And contracting muscles produce heat. So think about it. If you start running, right, you have to contract a lot of muscle. That contracting muscle produces heat, so you start getting warm. That's why you sweat when you exercise. So that's how the body does it to try to maintain your core body temperature when you get cold. Now watch. Let's do the opposite. Let's say, for example, that your body temperature starts to go up. Let's say that you're exercising. What part of your body controls temperature? The hypothalamus. So as your core body temperature begins to rise, the hypothalamus detects that, and it will begin to make changes to try to get your core body temperature back down. So instead of cutting off blood flow to your extremities when you're cold, it will actually increase blood flow. So it will cause the blood vessels of your skin in your arms and legs and your skin all over to dilate. So that will increase that warm blood to your skin. So what happens to your skin when your body temperature gets higher? It gets red and warm. So that's the body's way of trying to dissipate that heat. The other thing it does is, let's go back to the skin. So instead of constricting those blood vessels again, it's going to dilate those blood vessels. It's going to make those blood vessels bigger. So these blood vessels here are going to dilate, so more of that rich red blood that has heat can now get closer to the skin so you can radiate that heat. The other thing it'll do is you got these little sweat glands right here, and you will begin to sweat. And those sweat glands, little ducts there, produce the sweat. And then the water gets on the surface of your skin, and when that water evaporates, it will take the heat with it. The best way our body knows to dissipate heat is through sweating. So we talked about this before. Babies don't sweat real well, so that's why they spike temperatures. Adults should be able to sweat, and they got a bigger surface area so they can send more blood to the skin to get rid of it. So if you have an adult with a fever of 104 and a baby with a fever of 104, the adult is sicker because the adult has more ways to lower that body temperature, but it's not working. So those are 3 examples of homeostasis the body uses. And when you explain them to me, I want you to explain the stuff I just explained to you. Again, this will allow you, once you understand how this stuff works, to begin to start understanding some of the conditions like of fever, things of those lines. So that's why I want you to understand it. All right, that'll do it. I hope you got it, and I will see you in class.